Our new topic today is linear equations, and first we're going to look at solving just one-step equations. First of all, when we're talking about linear, what we're going to see is that we'll never see any like pronumeral, so letter, with a power. It will just be to the power of 1, meaning, so just you won't see like 2 minute, you'll just see x minus 79, or we might use another letter, but so linear just means that. When we're performing or calculating linear equations, so remember equation means there's an equal sign in it now, we solve the equation by using inverse operations. So what we mean by inverse operations is opposite. So if we have something that's multiplying on one side of the equal sign, if we move that thing over an equal sign, it'll do the opposite, which is divide. Then vice versa, if it was dividing and you want to move it over, it'll multiply on the other side. So same if we're adding something on one side and we move it over an equal sign, it will subtract. And just in case, if we do see anything that was squared, like that, and because when you're trying to solve for the equation, you just want 1x by itself. So to do the opposite operation to squaring is to do the square root. So we've covered that a little bit. So let's go look at our examples. So one-step equations, meaning we only have to do one thing to solve it. So if we look here, we want to get x by itself, so we're going to move the minus 79 onto the other side. So if we move it to the other side, we're left with x, and the opposite to subtracting 79 is adding 79. And then we just simply add them and we get 232, and there's our answer. So we'll put a square. So here on the next example, it's 6 multiplying with ex. So because it's like timesing, it's really like times. So when we move it over there to get the x by itself, we move that 6 over, it's going to divide. So we can simplify that fraction, and we can say 2 goes into 100 50 times, and 2 goes into 6 3 times. So we can say 50 over 3. Now we like to leave this as the answer because a fraction is an exact answer. And so we'd rather have that if we can. So unless they ask you or you see it in a different way in a multiple choice, but I'm just happy with you to leave it like that. Okay, in this last example, the 7 is dividing here. So if we move it over an equal sign to get that x by itself, it's going to multiply. So then we've got 19 times 7, which is 133. And there's our answer. Okay, when solving two-step equations, so we've had a couple of things happen to the pronumeral, the y. We need to determine what's happened first, and then we work backwards. So if we have a look at what's going on here. So if we look at this example, what happened was the y was multiplied by 2 first, so that was the first thing that happened, and then we had 4 was added to it, and then we added 4, so that was the second, and we let it equal 12. So when you go to perform your opposite operations, you go in reverse order. So because if we're going in reverse order, the plus 4 was the second thing we did, so that will be the first thing we move. So we minus 4, the opposite operation, will be the first thing we do to solve it, and then we will do divide by 2 because that was, and that'll be the second that we do. So if we go over to our example, so 2y, I'm going to move the 4 over first. So we'll get 12 minus 4. So we get 2y equals 8. And then I'll do the dividing. So 8 divided by 2. So we get y equals 4. So we just need to go in the opposite way of what happened. So we'll do another example. Okay, so if we have a look at this example, let's look at what's happened. So first, we had x1 got added to the x, okay? So first one was added to x, and then we divided by 2. So if we're going to go into the reverse operations, what we're going to do is we're going to do times 2 first, because that's was the last thing, and then we'll do minus 1. So let's have a look when we're over here solving it. So because the divided by 2 was the last thing to be done, so that'll be the first thing I move. So dividing, so I'm going to do opposite, which is timesing. So I've got x plus 1 equals 22, and then I'll move the 1. And so plus 1 on this side, if I move it over, it'll subtract. So x equals 21. Okay, so if we do another example. Okay, if we have a look, first thing that happened to x, that it was multiplied by -4, and then we subtracted 7 from it. So if we're going back in the reverse way, going backwards, we've got to go first. First we will add 7, and then we will divide by -4. Okay, so let's have a look. So -4x equals -19. Now I've moved that over, so it's become plus 7. So we get -4x equals -12. Now we're going to move this. It's timesing, it'll divide on the other side. So we get -12 divided by -14, which equals positive 3. So there's our answer. Okay, I'll just do one more for you. So let's have a look. What happened if we had 2 divided by x equals 1/2? Okay, because we want the x to be up the top, we want x to equal something, and we don't want 1 over x as such. So we've got to maybe rearrange. So let's try and get x up the top. So if I move this x, it's dividing here. If I move it over the equal sign, it'll be up, it'll multiply up on the other side. So if I do that, I'm left with 1/2 multiplied by x. Now if we think of our fraction rules, we could pretend that's like over 1, and we multiply across. So we get 2 equals x over 2. So now we've got like this. Now because we want to get x by itself, let's move this one out of the way. So it's dividing here. So if it goes over the other side, it will multiply. So we get 2 times 2 equals x. So we get 4 equals x. Doesn't matter which way you have your equation, as long as you've solved what 1x equals. And in this case, it's 4.